Hey there, good Brassy folks. Thanks for checking out the latest episode of the Brassy Broadcast, where successful dames from across the music industry come to dish on the business of music. It's been a busy couple of weeks since the last episode came out. My band, Sister Threadgood, has played a couple of shows at the State Fair, and we have a couple more shows coming up there later this week. So that means more funnel cakes and lemon shake-ups. Life is pretty good here in Indiana right now. And I've wrapped up interviews and scheduled more with some ladies that are doing incredible work all across the music industry. There are some great conversations coming your way in the next few months. And I've been a little obsessed with guitars and guitar playing lately. I got hooked on Chris Shiflett's podcast called Walking the Floor. If you haven't heard it yet, check it out. For those of you that don't know Chris, he plays in a country band called Chris Shiflett and the Dead Peasants. He also plays in this other band you might have heard of called the Foo Fighters. Anyway, I am just smitten with his show. He just had a great conversation with Sturgill Simpson, and he's talked to some super groovy guitar players like Kenny Vaughan and Red Volkert, hence my rekindled love affair with my Telecaster and twang. And in honor of my recent guitar obsession and my gigs at the State Fair, I decided to use a little piece of music for the show intro that I wrote a while back that was actually inspired by the State Fair train. I got to play my Telly and this super cool old Tone Master lap steel to give it that little train vibe. And you guys are in for a big treat this week. I had the pleasure of chatting with Tara Lowe. She's the founder of Guitar It Up for Girls and Guitar Girl magazine. We talked about how she's found her niche in the online guitar marketplace and how she's been able to empower and encourage women to play guitar. So she's definitely a girl after my own heart. To learn more about Tara and the work that she's doing, stick around for our conversation and check out her website, guitaritupforgirls.com. Now enjoy the show.
Well, that's ironic that I'm in the music industry since I don't even have a background in music. I mean, I played the violin as a little girl, went through like junior high school playing cello and into high school, but then I had a dance background, but got out of high school, got married, had kids, did the whole mom thing, PTA mom, all of that kind of stuff. But then, I have 4 kids that several of them were involved in music. I had them in music lessons since they were really young in elementary school, and they ended up going on to junior high school and college, marching band, jazz bands. My son, I have one son that actually taught after he went to a music scholarship to Fresno State University and then got out and taught music. And
cool.
So I was always around music. My husband plays guitar and drums, and we've always had a music room in the house. So, my kids were in bands throughout Southern California. So I've gone to like every venue there supporting them. Yeah. So what happened was my husband was taking some guitar lessons with a teacher when we were living in Southern California. And the guy's like, hey, the NAMM convention's coming up. Have you ever heard of it? And he's like, no, what's NAMM? And so for the people that don't know, it's the National Association of Music Merchants. They put on 2 big conventions every year. The big one's in Anaheim, California, and then they have a mini one in Nashville in the summer. But we sign up, we go. It was amazing to walk around that facility and see all the equipment and stuff. So we bought some guitars and hung them in his little shop and put up a website, and we took off into the little business. So that's how it kind of got started.
So tell us more then about Guitar It Up for Girls, and what was that tipping point where you said, you know what, I need to create this company to do this work and gear it towards women and girls?
Well, what happened was, we ended up buying a bunch of guitars and straps and, strings and all this stuff. And we were planning on getting into like the entry level market since the instructor had, taught beginner students, and he'd buy the guitars from us. And, we put some products in his little office, and, but you can imagine that, there's all the big Amazon and eBay and, all the chain stores that are online. There were so many outlets and so much competition.
Sure.
That we sat there with all this inventory. And then I ended up the next year going again and ran across Daisy Rock guitars, and they were so cute. And pink and sparkly, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and they had all the little girls were all around, Tish, the owner of Daisy Rock, and just the booth was just hopping.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped and we bought a couple of guitars and put them on our site, and then they sent me to an event that they were putting on that they weren't going to attend, but they said, "Hey, go attend on our behalf." So I did, and the response that I got to it, everybody loved it, and they were just the stories that they told, and I thought, there is a need out there. Maybe this is the niche market that people talk about. So,
right,
because I originally started with guitaritupforgirls.com, so that kind of launched into guitaritupforgirls.com.
Could you see a difference in the business after you kind of niched it down?
Yes, definitely. I still have Guitar It Up. I don't really do a lot with it. I'm going to probably turn it more into a blog. Because like I said, I just had all this inventory that was sitting there and kind of just sold it for what I had into it. But the girl stuff, I'm especially big at Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So my customers range from, boyfriends buying stuff for the girlfriends, the parents and grandparents buying presents for their kids and grandkids. I have, ladies that are buying, want to learn, in the 50s, wanted to pick up the guitar and play and learn, buy guitars. I've, it's just been fun. I've even had, guys buying stuff for themselves. I mean, because, we carry the Luna guitars, which are beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And, not just specifically girl related, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and as an online retailer, how do you build relationships with customers so that a purchase isn't just a one and done transaction?
Well, I guess it's because I personally talk to the customers, I interact with them. I'm the point of contact for it's just me and my husband that do this. So we're not like big, but so we have the ability to have a personalized approach to this. And customers tell us they love it because, they'll deal with some online, store and they don't, you get an automated response.
Right.
So when we pick up the phone and call them with a question or, something about their order, or if they call us and we answer the phone or we respond by email right away, they're impressed with that.
I'm
and
sure.
they just love our customer service and the fact that, especially at Christmas, I fret every year, like I would hate to miss somebody's, getting their present in time. So we really work with them to make sure that they get everything right on time and, make sure they don't miss the cutoffs and stuff like that. So I think that's, and, plus I interact with people on social media. So I think that makes a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. So as an online retailer, with people, like you mentioned, at Christmas time trying to buy gifts, what's the biggest question that you get from people that maybe aren't familiar, with buying guitars and aren't in that world? What's the biggest question that you get when they're shopping for a gift of a guitar for someone?
What size guitar does my daughter need? And it's hard it's hard for us to say because, we don't know because they range, people so they'll say, "Oh, my daughter's 6 years old." Well, is she a big 6-year-old or a small 6-year-old,
Right.
Petite frame or, well, it is because, a lot of times they'll have somebody who's like, one girl was 14, but she was really, really small. So, that, and, a lot of times they'll go into a store, and they'll find out from the local store or guitar teacher. I've had that happen where I actually had guitar teachers recommend the actual guitar that they're looking for.
Oh,
and,
nice.
So that makes it easier on us.
Yeah. A lot less returns that way.
Yeah. I don't really get a lot of returns.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I think
you guys are doing it right out of the gate.
I've been lucky. Yeah.
Cool. I know that you're doing Guitar Girl magazine. Has that been helping to grow your brand?
Yes and no. It's not the way that happened and the way I launched that was after I moved from Southern California and I came here to Atlanta and I just had, kind of changed, had more time than when I got here to, to readjust everything because I had, left all my people in because a lot of my business was in California. California and Texas are like my biggest states.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it kind of dropped off a little when I moved here. And plus, just making the change and moving stuff around. I just felt like I had more time. And I always had that in the back of my mind to do that because I do have a blog. I feature artists on the Guitar It Up for Girls site. So that was another way to get customers is that these young girls, we feature and they're all excited and they're putting it out on their social media. So, it gets traffic to my site. And So I had this artist or a publicist that I was working with, featuring one of her artists, and she put my name out there as a media outlet, and all of a sudden the requests started coming in.
Cool.
More, yeah. So I thought, let's time to open this e-zine, and I've heard from so many people about, gosh, we don't get the recognition, or it's always, it's a male-dominated industry, and I get the beef about people that don't like, the magazines that portray girls as sex objects, as opposed to their guitar, ability.
Right.
So I just thought maybe this was time, and I did, and it's been great, so that's how I launched into that.
Fantastic.
So, I have my stuff on the site, I got a little banner to my site, but it's really just about getting people exposed to it, like, empowering women to pick up the instrument and play, feel good about themselves. It's a positive feeling, a positive environment. So
what kind of feedback have you received since you launched that?
I've had really, really good feedback. I have, publicists that work with me that, always tell me you're so good to work with, and you're so, you're responsive, and people that go on Facebook and just send me messages. I love what you're doing. This is great. You get the occasional naysayer.
Oh yeah.
I had a guy one time. I was at an event in Los Angeles, and I had a Daisy Rock guitar there and a Luna guitar, and he comes up. There's no such thing as a girl guitar. Blah, 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 this is stupid. And I just thanked him. Okay, great, whatever you think.
Yeah.
He's like, this is just because it's pink. So I said, why don't you pick it up and play it? And I showed him all the different features of a Daisy Rock guitar. The slimmer neckline, the thinner body, lightweight materials. He ended up still being a little bit of a jerk, and so this kind gentleman came over and ushered him away for me, thankfully.
Very nice.
Who knows what I would have done to him?
Yeah. And I've got to say, those Daisy Rocks, I volunteer at the Girls Rock Camp here in Indy. And the first time I picked one up, I was like, whoa, like they're not fooling around. That's a really nice guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I first started doing this, I guess because I had this closeness to Indianapolis because I lived there for a short time, I actually sponsored a child for a camp at in Indianapolis at the Girls Rock Camp my first year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I do a lot of charity work. I've done, I got involved with the Los Angeles Women in Music, and they have support a lot of charities. So I would go up there and do events, and I did stuff with the Special Angels. I still do things with them. This place called Home. I've done some stuff with another organization in Indianapolis. I've sponsored scholarship at Musicians Institute for a female guitarist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not a full school. It's just to help towards our tuition.
Yeah, it all helps.
Yeah, yeah. So now that I'm in Atlanta, I've done some stuff with the Girls Rock Camp here in Atlanta.
Great.
So that's always it's always fun. But you know what? It conflicts with NAMM, Summer NAMM.
Oh no.
So I've been able to, like, one time I just rush back from NAMM so I could at least go to the show and see it. But it's always, I can never get there and just, be there the whole week.
Yeah.
Because that would be fun.
So Tara, when you attend an event like NAMM, which I was fortunate enough to go to a couple times while I was in college, and it's overwhelming. How do you navigate a huge industry event like that? And what do you hope to walk away with?
It is very overwhelming. And for, the first time going there, I guess I've been so many years now that I know, because all the booths pretty much stay in the same area.
Thank God.
Yes. But, it was like maybe the third or fourth year that I went that I finally made it down to the basement area or that level E, I guess it's E. It's like I never even knew it existed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool area because those are like more the boutique guitar companies and, just different types of guitars, not your big name brands. But what I basically do is now that I go as media and I'm on their media list, they send, the emails just start coming in. All the manufacturers are sending you emails. So basically I get an Excel spreadsheet and I just put in 30-minute time slots and I just start filling them in. I have them for every day of the week. And I try to keep them grouped together, like maybe all the people on level 3 one day, but it doesn't always work that way. So I've been known to be on level 3, like in the Fender room, and have to run down to the Martin guitars on a different level and, hall B and meet with them and then run back up to level 3. And then, I mean, literally this past year, I was like, almost dead. I think I almost killed myself this year.
It's
and
rough.
Thought I just need, and I even have other people that go too. It's not like I'm doing it all by myself. But I just need to add more boots on the ground. But, thankfully I only have to focus on guitars and accessories. I think if I had to do pianos and sound equipment and,
right.
that would be, so I always try to make time to see with my vendors and, place a couple of orders for straps and strings and, stuff like that. And then I always try to fit in. Well, now the She Rocks has gotten bigger. They have their event this year it was in the a main area, and it was really nice. They had a dinner and everything, so I was able to meet with my friends and have dinner with them, so I could kill two birds with one stone.
Nice.
Because I always try to meet with my friends too, and have dinner with them and network and everything. So, but yeah, it's always fun to see what's new, and always try to find new artists. And this year it was funny because I was walking around and these girls they were all dressed up like Queen, and they had a big sign there. It's like up real high, and they're walking around. We're the Killer Queens. Come see us. We're the all-girl tribute band to Queen. And so I was like, oh, I went up and introduced myself. They go, oh, we know who you are. We've been wanting to meet you. And
nice.
So, yeah, they had heard about the e-zine, and so we're featuring them. As a matter of fact, it should be up next week, an interview with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's so it's always fun to see who you're going to meet, and it's funny. Here's you're walking around, and you'll see artists that you've seen before, or meet new ones. So it's fun.
Cool.
It's good.
So you've got a lot going on. How do you manage all this? What superpower do you bring to the table?
Well, I wouldn't call it a superpower. I just try to keep it organized because, for one thing, the email requests come in all the time. Between, you're on email lists for, Taylor guitars, Fender guitars, Daisy Rock, Luna, everybody, and then you're at all the amp companies, and then you've got the publicists that are emailing you. So you're getting email requests all the time, and I'm getting them not just for females, I'm getting them for the Guitar It Up site as well. And then I've got people that send me stuff that it's not guitar related. So I actually have started two new blogs. One called Madam Metal. It's all about female metal musicians.
Nice.
And another one called Country Girls Music. And so it's all country girls, I'll
be checking that out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just working on it, so give it some time.
Okay.
But I think just keeping everything organized. Then I've got to, keep track of, the writers and what they're doing, and then are they responding? Are they getting their stuff in time? Then you got the orders to fulfill for the retail site. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
So is this magical organizational power, is that something that you were born with, or did you just have to learn it and develop it as you went along?
Well, I think I'm organized by nature, but
you're so lucky.
I don't know why. Well, it's funny because my background, I actually started out, many, many years ago as a paralegal.
Oh, okay.
And then plus I do, some corporate work, so you're dealing with the secretaries of state, business type stuff, a lot of organizational type materials. So that was my background before I got into this.
Oh, wow.
So that probably helped me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So being organized, trying to pull people together, it's been hard because I've gone through so many different writers who maybe some have a different agenda than I do. They got an axe to grind. They wanted to do these cover stories revealing this. And I'm like, that's not what I'm all about. That's not where I'm trying to go with this. So, trying to navigate that, different personalities.
Yeah.
And then plus, as far as the networking and stuff goes, I mentioned to you before we started that, I'm not that, I'm actually a very insecure person. So for me to go to these networking events, and I, just will go up by myself, and like I would go up to LA, when I lived in Orange County, just by myself, or like here, I'll go to the Recording Academy events, and I'm in a room full of 100 people or more, and I'm just like, get all of a sudden, like, it's almost like stage fright. I get afraid. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? And I start sweating. And
oh yeah, I know that feeling.
yeah, then all of a sudden I wake up and I go, hi, I'm Tara Lowe from Guitar Girl Magazine. And I just put out my hand and shake their hand. And all of a sudden it just starts to flow. And then it's like, okay, now I'm in the groove.
Yeah. It's that first conversation, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that I've had to learn.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I still struggle with that when I go to networking events, but I'm getting better at it because I know that like that's the deal breaker. If you're not networking, nothing's going to happen.
Right. Right. And plus, I think it's made me more comfortable knowing that people look at me as a media outlet and a way to get their message out.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you had a mentor along the way?
I kind of pull from different people, but I think somebody, and it's not like that she mentors me, it's just, I feel like looking at Tish Cervallo, the owner of Daisy Rock, that, she doesn't let anything bother her, negativity, any of those things. She believes in what she does, she does it,
Yeah.
So I admire her for that, so I kind of like keep her in mind when I feel like I've, come across somebody who was negative or, the people that say, oh, girl guitars,
right.
or female guitarist, and then I've got some artists that don't want to be known as a female guitarist. They would rather be just a guitarist. And I understand, that's something too, but yeah, you think about, there's the award shows who have, best female vocalist, and best male vocalist, it's what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You can check out my interview with Tish in episode 34 of the Brassy Broadcast. Just visit brassybrod.com/podcast. Now back to the show. What would you say is the best piece of advice that you've been given along the way?
I would say ignore the negativity. And that's business and personal.
Oh, yeah.
Like I told you about the story with the guy. So those comments, you just got to let it go. I did recently have, like when I first started this out, I was constantly out seeking out artists, to interview and everything. But now that it's gotten out there and it's growing, we're getting so many requests that, unless it's somebody, of course, the big people I haven't gotten to yet. But I keep working it, maybe someday. But there was this one lady that I just recently, like last week, emailed about, potential interview and told her I'd be honored if she would grant us an interview, and went through the whole thing. And I thought she had a great story to tell, behind the scenes musician, being a female in a male dominant industry back in the day. And boy, she wrote back to me, not nice at all.
Really?
Yeah. I was really taken aback because I've had everybody like, you email Jennifer Batten like right away. Oh yeah, that's great. I love it. And
yeah,
finishing up another interview with her because she's on tour right now with a new show she's got out. So, and it's more like a seminar type thing where she's teaching you not just, music, but about the music industry and, different aspects of music. And so it's been kind of
cool.
Yeah. So that's coming out. But I was like, okay, thank you for your time. I apologize for bothering you.
Wow.
And I just thought, if you're that angry, you maybe could have turned it around and use us as a platform to, to get your word out there, Yeah. So I was a little taken aback by that, but that's okay.
Yeah. No thank you would have been fine.
Yeah. Right.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, oh well. I guess, some people don't like the girl guitar thing, so that's okay too.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take any press I can get.
Right. Well, you know who put that in perspective? Scott Borchetta I was watching American Idol this past season, and he was on there talking about, what he was going to do with whoever won and, got signed with him, that the approach they take. And he goes, get your name out there with press. And he goes, I don't care if it's big press, small press, any press is good press,
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, because he made some comment about the small guys. And that made me feel good because I thought, see, and so I started following them. So now they're following me back on Twitter and so it's been fun.
How big of a role has social media played in getting you connected with potential artists to talk to?
I think it's very big, because what happens, I think once an artist shares it, they've got followers and they're in their network, and they've got, other artists that they network with. And then those artists will start following me, and, and then they'll, reach out to me. So I think it's been very good. And like even my Facebook, I get private messages all the time on Facebook about, hey, check me out, check out this,
Yeah.
or they'll email me, they'll go on my site and then email me directly. So, and then I think the people get excited when I, respond back to them on Facebook, like, oh, wow, you're like this one guy just last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. He was like, I want to know who's behind Guitar Girl magazine. Is it a female or if it's a male? Because if it's a male, I don't think it's real. And I wrote him, I said, no, I'm a female. And I gave him my link to my bio. And I said, you can believe that we're real and we are what we're trying to do. We're not about, just
not some crazy marketing scam.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've seen some sites out there that feature all these guitarists that are, female guitarists, but half of them don't play. They're just, holding a guitar and looking sexy in their little, tiny bikini.
That's not irritating at all, is it?
No, not at all. So no, we're not like that. Not that we don't have gorgeous artists on some of our stuff, but I'm like, it's just about everybody. And, I've even had artists that have admitted, I'm not a great guitarist, but I use it as an outlet to write songs.
Yeah.
To write melodies. And then I co-write with other people. So you don't have to be great at everything, because it's just the knowledge and the start.
Exactly. So what do you know now that you wish you would have known when you were first starting your company?
Well, I guess there's one thing. I had a vendor tell me one time, if you want to get into music, if you want to make $1 million in the music business, start with 2. And, that was it.
Yeah.
So, it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, but I'd do it all over again.
That's great. We're glad that you're here still doing it. So what's been the most mind-blowing experience of your career so far? The one where you were just like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that this just happened.
I think, going to NAMM, or like going to a festival, going like that event where, NAMM, where those girls were like, oh, I know Guitar Girl magazine,
Yeah.
Knowing that people recognize you and respect you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
I have to stop and think, wow, I can't believe I'm actually making this impact on people,
That's cool.
and that people appreciate what I'm doing, and that I created something like this,
Right.
It was never I didn't start out to do this. It just kind of, happened, and it's been great that it's gone as good as it has.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we're starting something new here at the Brassy Broadcast. I think I told you about that I'm going to start adding playlists in the show notes, because we talk about music, and the fact that I don't have a playlist is kind of crazy. So I think it's interesting to see, where my guests are finding inspiration and motivation and what they're taking away from some of their favorite artists. So who are some of your favorites?
Well, let's see. I have to be a little biased here and say my son and his wife have a band called Radigan, and I listen to a lot of their music. They've had some stuff in movies, and they're not doing anything currently right now because she's actually acting this summer. But besides that, I love Alanis Morissette.
Oh yeah.
Sheryl Crow. I saw her here in concert in Atlanta, and it was actually a free concert. And it was going to start like at 3 p.m, but I got there early in the morning so I could be up front, It was in Centennial Park in downtown Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I was right up front, and it was just great. So Sheryl Crow I love. And, I'm a Taylor Swift fan. I know people hate to hear that.
No, you know what?
I love Taylor Swift. I love Katy Perry.
Taylor writes a catchy tune. I mean, you can't argue with that.
They give her such a hard time about her tunes and what she writes about, boys or this or breakup. Don't a lot of artists do that? Isn't that a lot of inspiration for a lot of songs? So I just think she gets I think she gets a lot of grief. But
I think that, and I've been told that you should write about what you know.
Right.
It makes sense. Right. So, she tends to know about boys and breakups. So good for her.
Yes. Yes.
Poor thing.
Oh, that's That's funny. But yeah, I love Jewel. I love Heart, Barracuda,
Oh, yeah.
Magic Man.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
also love, I grew up loving, Jackson 5. It was like I thought I was going to marry Michael Jackson someday when I was young.
Didn't we all?
uh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I love all kinds of music, honestly.
So what's revving your creative engines right now? What's on the horizon for you for new projects?
Well, I mentioned the 2 new blogs. So that's going to take some time because it's between trying to do the Guitar Girl magazine and keep up with the retail stuff. I've got those 2 blogs. I've got one of my writers here. She has a blog that she does, and she covers a lot of festivals, and she's wanting me to do a podcast with her or some kind of a radio show. And I actually reserved a couple of names like Guitar Girl Radio or Guitar Girl TV, and just in case somewhere down the road I want to venture into that. Because I actually have my son, his father-in-law has a production company here in Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
And I keep thinking, wouldn't it be great to have a little room in his studio, and when the artists come into town, come in and sit down and talk to us, and so who knows? I mean, that's going to take a lot of work. But that, and I've on the retail side, I've actually been talking to a company about putting together some Strats for us.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
great.
I've got a name reserved for that too, Girl Gear. But we'll see.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a lot of great stuff coming up.
Yeah, thank you. It's just got to find the time now for it.
No kidding. So what's the best way for our friends to connect with you and stay up to date on your latest projects?
Well, on our site, guitargirlmag.com, we have links to our Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. And we also have links on there from the new sites, Madam Metal and Country Girls Music. And then on guitaritupforgirls.com, the same thing. We have sites to our links to our Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter.
Fantastic. And I will have links to all of those in our show notes. So Tara, thanks so much.
Thank you. And girls rock.
That's all, folks. You can check out the show notes at brassybroad.com. The conversation continues over at the Brassy Broadcast page on Facebook or on Twitter and Instagram at BrassyBroadGen. And don't forget to check out the playlist for this episode on Spotify. You can find me over there at BrassyBroadGen. One last thing. If you got a little nugget of value or just enjoyed the conversation, please leave a rating and review over at iTunes. Rumor has it that those ratings and reviews help more people discover the show. Or even better, share it with a friend that you think would dig it. Now be brazen, be bold, and get out in the world and do some good.